The way I am filming this video in a leather jacket when it is 90 degrees outside is truly a call for help. The amount of value I put into aesthetics is alarming and needs to be stopped. Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and today I will be doing a review for The Invisible Life of Addie LARUE by Victoria Schwab. So for the most part, I feel like I'm fairly okay with elaborating on my thoughts about a book and how I feel about it, the pros, the cons, all of those things. I feel like I have grown to be quite equipped with giving you guys information about a book and how I feel about said book. However, there are still cases where I read a book, and it's usually always books that I really enjoy, where it is so hard for me to sit down and compartmentalize the story that I just read. But me as a reviewer, I want to convince you guys to read the books that I really love, or at least give you as much information about the book, and you are able to then decipher if you would like said book based on the information that I present to you. I procrastinated filming this review for many reasons, but one of the biggest things was that I just don't know if I am going to be able to properly articulate this book in a review that I want to give. It's just one of those books that I have just not stopped thinking about. It's one of those books that have a ton of layers to it, and hopefully I can at least give you guys some insight in some of those layers, enough for you to want to pick it up. So without further ado, and that long intro aside, let's get into the actual review. So first off, I'm going to start with like an overall plot about the book. This book is following Addie LARUE. Addie was born in the early 18th century, a time where women definitely could not decide for themselves and likely just became brides and mothers and then died in the town in which they grew up with. This was definitely the life that Addie was going to live. However, she knew that she was just not going to be happy with that life. From a very young age, she always wanted to travel. She always wanted to escape her small French town. She wanted to see the world, and she wanted to learn and live many experiences that she could. And growing up, she was very close to the village witch, for lack of a better word. And this village witch taught her about old gods and how to pray to them. And so Addie always prayed to these old gods for them to present her an out of this town. And the witch told her one thing, and that's to never pray to gods after the sun sets. Now, unfortunately, on the eve of her wedding night, after many failed attempts to get answers from these gods, she accidentally prays to a dark god, and this god is the only one who answered her, and she creates this deal with this extremely old and ancient entity and sells her soul to this god in order to achieve immortal life. However, the catch with her immortality is that no one will be able to remember her. So if she walks into a room and walks out, the people that she saw in that room would not remember her. So she is essentially invisible for these 300 years. So that's a very surface level synopsis. It takes place in two different time periods, not necessarily two exactly, but basically we're following Addie in those 300 years that she is living her life, and the modern present day timeline where she happens to meet someone who remembers her. This book is about yearning, desire, despair, and legacy. All of those words are quintessentially this book, if you can describe it in 4 words. I loved it a lot. Like, a lot. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. However, I have not stopped thinking about it since I put it down. I am very much anticipating moving it up to a 5-star once I reread this book, because I, again, have not stopped thinking about it. It has made such an impact with me. First of all, I want to go over kind of the writing and the tone of this book. One of my first Goodreads updates for this book, and my Goodreads is linked down below if you want to see all of the updates that I give for this book. It is 18th century Dorian Gray, if written by a Cancer and taken place in France, aka horny but emotional. That is the overall vibes of this book. It's very reminiscent to Dorian Gray, in fact, and that might be a big reason why I really loved it so much. Not only is it about a main character who sells their soul to the devil, it also has such a huge thematic element of art and philosophizing life and living life through art, language, culture, literature, things that decorate the human experience, if you will. And I love that so much. It also has a ton of religious overtones and like elements to it that, again, I love. It is my favorite thing in the world when religion plays a big part in a story, because I just think it is so incredibly interesting. The writing style and tone of this book is honestly quite reminiscent of Vicious as well, which is also by V.E. Schwab, and that was the first V.E. Schwab I read, and I was very happy that I read Vicious before this. It takes the religious tones and the literary writing style that you see a bit in Vicious and takes it to a whole new level, and that was one of my absolute favorite things about Vicious. So to see that in Addie LaRue and again elevated to a whole new level, I appreciated it so much. One of my absolute favorite quotes, and especially my favorite thing that our devil character says in this book, is, "I am stronger than your god and older than your devil. I am the darkness between stars and the roots beneath the earth. I am promise and potential, and when it comes to playing games, I divine the rules, I set the pieces, and I choose when to play. And tonight, I say no." Ooh! I just love a book with religious overtones and a hot villain. That is my niche genre that I love to see, and this book delivers that in, oh, it's just immaculate. The way our devil character, and I always say devil in quotes because, again, as you can see by that quote, he's not the devil per se, like he's not the Christian devil, but the same archetype, it's the same idea. And so the way he interacts with the story, because he is the only one, of course, that remembers Addie. So Addie's only companionship is with this man or entity who owns her soul once she dies and once she gives up this life. So she has to endure this power struggle between him and herself, and him just expecting her to be so incredibly miserable with life, because of course he's not human, so his interpretation of human existence is quite limited, and the way he sees it, if Addie can't have companionship, she will thus not want to live this life. However, because of this void of companionship that she cannot have, she then is forced to seek out other means of life, enjoyment, pleasure, things like that through art and food and travel and many other things. He asks her, like, are you done yet? Are you over this life? And she tells him, she's like, I have so much more life to live. I have so many more places to see, so much more art to see, so many more books to read, and things like that. It just really shows the importance of the actual tangible evidence and tangible products of the human mind and the human existence. Here's another quote that I really loved. It says, "But a life without art, without wonder, without beautiful things, she would go mad. She has gone mad. What she needs are stories. Stories are a way to preserve oneself, to be remembered, and to forget. Stories come in so many forms, in charcoal, in song, in paintings, poems, films, and books. Books she has found are a way to live 1,000 lives, or to find strength in a very old one." I really appreciate the fact that Addie found so many ways to not only entertain herself, but find value in this life that she chose for herself and that was dealt to her. I loved following her as she traveled to these different places and tried these different things and met these different artists and authors and made her imprint on the world in an indirect way, because another big part of this story is her, again, with this power dynamic, with this devil character. She is learning how to manipulate her way into actually leaving a mark on the world. Addie cannot be remembered in her face or her personality or her as a person, but she can influence others. And so she finds ways to one-up the god and to trick him and play his own games. And that makes for such interesting power dynamics, because she was just this girl from this really small French town, and she got in a 300-year war with the devil, a god that was older than the devil. I think that is so interesting and would be so hard to write, and I do think at times V.E. Schwab could have done better, but I feel like that is such a hard task to undertake to begin with. I think she did a great job, and I was happy with what I got. Moving aside from symbolism and themes and big picture things like that, let's go into actual characters. So I personally really liked Addie. I am not gonna say she's like a favorite character of mine. I think of it again very similarly to like Dorian Gray. Like, Dorian Gray himself is not a favorite character of mine, but it's the way Dorian Gray is used as a vessel for examining these themes that I really love is what I really loved about the book. And kind of similarly with Addie, I do think the criticisms about her not having a ton of personality is warranted. I do think that she did have a personality, but again, she isn't like a favorite character of mine, and I don't think that the strength of this book in general is being character driven. I do think the strength is the writing, the themes, and the way those themes are shown through this plot about a girl making this deal with this really old god. I think you could put any other main female character in that scenario and I would probably feel very similarly. So in that sense, Addie is quite replaceable. Take that with what you will. Editing Heather popping in to say that a really big part of why I did enjoy Addie as a character was because that we got to see all of her loves and relationships throughout the years, and almost every single one of her past relationships really tore at my heartstrings. I really loved it. Made me so sad because of course of her fate about being invisible and all that jazz. So I really loved seeing Addie with other people, and I liked seeing her partners, but again, just her by herself, by her lonesome, if you will, definitely could have had more going on there. The devil, God, guy, we didn't get enough of him. We just didn't get enough of him. That is one of my biggest critiques with this book. I think this book could have been longer. I think we could have gotten so much more of him, so much more of the mythology, though I don't necessarily think the point of the book was to give this mythology, but of course I am always going to want more. But every single scene he was in, loved it so much. His relationship with Addie is exactly what I want. Again, love a hot villain, love a villain protagonist dynamic. I am but a darklina whore. I just love that toxic, sexual tension ridden relationship dynamic. What can I say? I do have my flaws, but we live with them and that we accept them. Last thing about Addie and Luke that I really, really love is how ambiguous their relationship is together. I know the blurb of this book is that a girl falls in love with the devil, and although some people think that is pitched incorrectly, I personally don't think it is. I do think that this book, to an extent, does deal with a girl who falls in love with the devil. It just is so much more nuanced than that because of their relationship. It is, as I've said, it's very ambiguous, it's very open-ended, it's very complicated, very toxic for sure, and it is just extremely interesting because, again, of the power dynamics. The power dynamics in this between them is so good. It's so interesting to read about, and every single time you get a new scene between them and a new conversation, it adds another layer to it. The way they interact with each other, you are left to decide if they actually love each other or not, and I think that is, again, so interesting. How many times am I going to say that? Now, my absolute biggest critique with this book is Henry, who is the man that remembers Addie in the present day. I hated him. I don't think I've ever read a more pathetic character, and I do not say that lightly. He was so annoyingly pathetic. Like, there's truly not another word that I can use to describe him. That is the word. He created the definition. He created the word. He wrote it in Webster's dictionary with his face on the side. His entire character, and every single time we got a POV from him, I was doing this. The motives for why he did what he did was so incredibly minuscule compared to the other characters in this book. It was, say it with me, pathetic. I think there are very few things in the world that make me more annoyed than pathetic men, especially pathetic rich men. And that is what Henry was. There were no excuses for his behavior. There was no excuses for his whining, and that's all he did throughout this whole book. He just whined and whined and whined and groveled and woe is me. The whole book. I just don't really care about the wasted potential of a rich man's life. You were given all the cards in multiple decks, and yet you're gonna whine about missing one Queen of Hearts. I have zero sympathy for you. So he was incredibly annoying. However, his character, aside from his actual personality, the concept of his character and the way he played his role in the story was warranted. I did think it was necessary. I did like how his character played in the plot of the story and the overall ending and result of the whole thing. I think he was a crucial character to the story and how the E. Schwab carried it out. However, I just wish his motives and I wish his personality were different. Another thing I should mention is that the story is very, very slow. I personally could not put it down, so I pretty much binge read the book. But that being said, the plot itself is quite slow. I do think that the different perspectives and the different time perspectives do drive the pacing forward. So you get chapters in the olden times and you get chapters in the present day. I, of course, liked the older chapters much, much more because you got to see Addie learn the boundaries of her curse. You got to see the historical settings of the cities that she visited. You got to see Luke a lot more. But the modern ones were still interesting too, I guess. Even though we got to see Henry in them, which I didn't really love. We've already established that. I also do think it can be quite repetitive sometimes. Addie repeats very similar concepts, very similar thoughts in various different points in the book. And that did get a bit annoying, I'm not gonna lie. Also, the literary-esque style of the writing definitely did come off as pretentious sometimes. I did roll my eyes a couple times, I'm not gonna lie. This book also has the best ending ever. It is the best ending I have ever read in a book. I loved the ending so much. It was the perfect blend of being open-ended yet still having a resolution. It was masterful and I could not ask for any better ending. The book is so worth finishing just to see the ending. Even if you hated the entire book and thus don't care about the ending at all, you just have to see how it ends because it ends so perfectly. I loved the way this book ends. It's so good. It's so good. Oh, best ending I've ever read. Overall, I think the best part about this book, aside from my personal enjoyment with like the religious and art and philosophy and all the things that are tied into the story and examined, I just really enjoyed how impressionable this story is. Regardless of if you really love it or you really hate it, I think you're going to have a lot to say when you read this book. I think you're going to have a lot of thoughts and a lot of opinions. And I, for one, am so excited to read and watch all of them because this book is going to be divisive. And every reader, like all books, but especially with this one, is going to take something differently out of it. And I think that is incredibly interesting and fun to see. I think it's going to be interesting to see how people remember this book. Now, before I go, I do just want to leave you with a couple more quotes to persuade you more to pick up this book. The first one is, "But art," she says with a quieter smile, "art is about ideas, and ideas are wilder than memories. They're like weeds, always finding their way up." Another quote that I really love. "She missed him the way someone might miss the sun in winter, though they still dread the heat. She missed the sound of his voice, the knowing in his touch, the flint-on-stone friction of their conversations, the way they fit together. He is gravity. He is 300 years of history. He is the only constant in her life, the only one who will always, always remember." And finally, this last one, "Why would anyone trade a lifetime of talent for a few years of glory? Because time is cruel to all and crueler still to artists. Because visions weaken and voices wither and talent fades. Because happiness is brief and history is lasting. And in the end, everyone wants to be remembered." So that is it for my Addie LaRue review. I already know I'm gonna be missing things out. I already know I am not being as eloquent as I wish I was. I already know that I'm gonna regret not saying certain things and all of that stuff, but hopefully the stuff that I did say influenced you to at least try it yourself. Down below in my description bar, I do have the link to purchase Addie LaRue. It is an Amazon affiliate link. It doesn't cost you anything extra. It just supports me and this channel. I will also have all of my socials linked, and you will be seeing my reading updates for Addie LaRue in an upcoming reading vlog. So definitely subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any additional thoughts that I may have on this book. Definitely let me know in the comments if you have read Addie, what your thoughts about it was, and if you're excited and all of those things. I would love to know. That is going to do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye!